I am Thor, son of Odin, and as long as there is life in my breast, I am running out of things to say.
Great, another broken white boy for us to fix.
That's my secret, Cat. I'm always angry.
You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are. With great power comes great responsibility. I can do this all day.
Wakanda Forever!
And what's up, y'all, and welcome to an illustrious episode of Views from the 616, the podcast where we discuss the MCU from the perspective of people of color. As you see right now, that is, if you're watching us on YouTube or Twitch, this is the All-Star Part 2 review of Wakanda Forever. Right here, and we have gathered up all kinds of people here tonight. But as always, first off, it's your boy DJ Ben Amin, aka Black Tom Petty, Universal Fan Con Shooter, Karen Civil War, Name Mo Better Blues, Mr. Talocan Man, the Off-White Panther, here in the spaceship tonight. Yes, by the looks of disgust and laughter, that worked out just fine. And let's go around robin, and starting off by the woman who would not join us. Just, if it was, the ratio wasn't right. Can you please let them know?
There's no reasons to record with men. If you don't have to record with men, there's no reason to do it. But I'm happy to be here in spite of that.
Can't argue that.
I'll suffer through it. Hey y'all, I'm Jay or Janicia, Jay from Tea with Queen and Jay podcast, aka Womanist Race Nerd, aka Storm Every Damn Day, aka Recast Your Mama, aka A Nigga Is Grieving. That's just my truth. Happy to be here.
I love it. Let's get it started. Also, we have Ron from POC Culture. Please let the people know. I know you're ready for this moment.
What's up? I'm so hyped to be here. Honored to be here, Ben. Don't take that from me. Excited to be part of this esteemed panel because I missed the first one, a.k.a. He Who Remains in Wakanda, a.k.a. Finding Namor, a.k.a. Cool Ron. Nice to be here.
All right. Also joining us back again is the doctor herself. I will let her, introduce herself as well.
Hello, such a pleasure to be here. My name is Dr. Drea, aka Doesn't Skip Leg Day. I don't know, I just came up with that. Aka Talocan Forever, aka It's an honor. It's always an honor. I'm a fan.
Oh, thank you very much. We are also fans of yours. We'll get into, where everybody, because pretty much everybody on this show got somewhere else, so we'll talk about a little later. We also have my brother Timm Hotep making, I want to say, his first appearance.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy for this to be your first episode.
Yo, Timm Hotep, aka long time, first time. Thank you all for inviting me to this chat. Also, aka Timm Hotep, the Black Matt Murdock, aka the dark-skinned Daredevil, the man without fear who don't care. Thanks, y'all. Let's talk about some shit. Yeah.
All right. And we also have joining us Miss Lockett Down herself. Please let the people know.
Hey, y'all. I'm Regine. I'm the coordinator of Women in Comics. And I got a couple of AKAs. I tried, y'all. AKA Gimme Namor. AKA Nakia's swimsuit. That's me, y'all. I'm so happy to be here. I knew you liked that one, Ben.
we didn't need to go there. So early in this show, we got to keep composure and everything right here. So the last member of our panel, Mr. Rodimus Prime himself.
It's Rodimus Prime from the Blackout Tips, aka Namor. No, nay less. LL Cuckoo Khan, the Krill manga, M Block You, African American Adam, and Iced Out Chainsaw Man. What's going on, y'all?
I'm so mad at that last one, and they less. Yeah, that's incredible. I want to cosplay as that now. Oh, all right, folks. Back on track. We are here with the Wakanda Forever Part 2 review. We are going to be talking about all things Wakandan Forever and everything else. So first off, since this is everyone's first time on the show since they've seen it, go around. What was y'all first reaction to this movie?
I loved it. I loved every single second of it. Disclaimer, I am grieving the loss of my sister, and all of, we do nerd shit together, and this was a big, the Black Panther release, the first one was a big thing for us. So I honestly almost didn't think I was going to see it. Cause I just wasn't motivated to do it. It felt like a scary thing to do by myself, but I went to you all's, screening of it. It was great. I had a great time. But I say that to say that I watched it through the lens of somebody who was freshly grieving in the way that, Shuri was grieving T'Challa. And so I loved it. I loved the way that they handled grief. And that to me was kind of the primary thing. Even though there was awesome stuff happening on the screen, I loved what was going on with Namor. I loved that whole everything about it. I loved. I listened to a few reviews. First of all, any review where somebody was like, "Well, they could have made me sick." All right, I'm not here for that. I'm not here for it. So there were a few things that I heard from people. It was like, oh, well, it was long, or it was this, or it was that. And there were a few things that I guess I'm like, okay, maybe. But for the most part, I loved it as somebody, again, who's looking at it through the lens of grief, and still also, as a grieving person, you don't want to feel abused. I didn't want to feel like grief was being kind of leveraged, or it was being used as a tool for, I think, what did Recast homie say on one of those reviews? He was saying, that the grief was used in the promotion of the movie and yada, yada. I didn't feel that kind of manipulation of my grief as a tool in, pushing the story forward. It felt like an honor. It felt like it was handled with care and respect. And that's honestly, Ryan Coogler is one of the few just directors or people in general that I trust to really bring their full selves to what they're doing, to really handle something with care. And I was so impressed with the way that they dealt with grief. But I thought it was excellent. I liked watching the buildup of Shuri. I know that people would have liked to see her more in the uniform, but I liked going through everything it took for her to finally say, I'm going to be the Black Panther. So I fucking loved it. Hands down, fight me.
All right. Anyone?
My first reaction was tears, of course, because I think from the time it pops on the screen, it's immediately like boom. And then I was so impressed because I think it's a Herculean task where a person really died. Like, it's not a movie character, really. It's bigger than that. And I'm so thankful that they were able to take $250 million and make a repass. You know what I mean? Like, that was a $250 million homegoing and like a community mourning, and it still ends with like a note towards the future, like with hope and with strength and all that. And then it also feels so good because like the characters in Marvel feel real and lived in. So it's like we're watching Letitia Wright, but I'm kind of watching Shuri, but I'm kind of watching Letitia Wright. You know what I mean? Like, it was like you feel like those tears were real. Angela Bassett's performance feels real, in a way that doesn't just feel like they put on costumes and put CGI on in the background. So I think those are like just the most impressive things. And then just on a movie standpoint, the intro and the care that they did Namor with that, like, Ryan Coogler, that's 2 times in a row. Like, because Killmonger was really them looking at Black Americans and being like, yeah, it's a movie about Africa, but it's kind of a movie about how we see Africa. And then this is this movie where they didn't just go, oh yeah, we'll just have this guy show up and he'll have wings on his feet. It was like, no, there's a whole culture. Look in the background. Look at the way he talks. Look at where he's from. even the origin of his name. Like, it's just, they thought about so much shit that I was just like, no offense, white people couldn't have did this. You know what I mean? Like, they would not have thought about it this long and felt that it was that important to include all of that. So, yeah, hats off to everybody.
Okay. Dr. Drea?
Yeah. I had a lot of anxiety coming into this, the grief I'm holding on to, just the apprehension about how is this portrayal going to look for Namor and his society. And I had just that weight of anticipation and hopefulness around a story that I wanted to be big enough for all the characters, and yet knowing that what a huge, tremendous task, right? To have to handle that and manage that. So I was celebrating at the end. I felt just the sense of joy, but also just a lot of strong emotions, right? I sort of renamed this movie Wakanda Vision. It is a study of traumatic grief in its entirety. And so, all of us come into that film holding on to our own unresolved grief, our own feelings about these characters on and then off screen, the people in our lives that we are in the process of losing or have lost. So, for me, I felt like almost weighted down by all of my expectations, but came out in tears, celebrating, feeling a sense of representation, how Namor and his personality, his motivations, the depth of his character was shown just really made me feel like celebrating. There were some parts that were not perfect. Let me just say up front, the real villain here is colonization. The real villain is white supremacy culture. And I felt like that was the undercurrent. I mean, for all of us here, it was like, it was there, it was visible. But I don't know if my counterparts in the theater who are white were really understanding that was the main threat here. That is the historical and modern threat.
No. On that note, I need to ask Regine how she felt about the film and everything that happened immediately afterwards, as they say.
I saw the movie twice.
Okay.
The second time, of course, at Crown Wakanda. The movie was absolutely beautiful. Absolutely, just from top to bottom. I feel like I'm just repeating what everyone has said before me. I'm definitely a person that lives in grief. And so to see so much going on camera that is in this fantastical world, I had to take a beat and say, wait a second, that's me, in the various layers of it. So I personally felt very seen. I also just appreciated how everything was so thoughtful, just in terms of the nuance, in terms of how we see Namor for the first time. And he comes in like mid-sentence. He doesn't say, hello, how are you? He's in mid-sentence. And for me, just that moment in and of itself was extraordinarily powerful. So I feel like I'm still processing all of the layers. But yes, after I saw the movie at Crown Wakanda, I was approached by a white lady in the bathroom while I'm washing my hands, saying to me, not hi, hello, how are you? But I can't believe the brown and black people. Yes, bye, Drea. I see you. And I definitely had to take a beat, 20 beats, and sisters are walking past me in the bathroom like, what she just said to you? And I said, Jesus, take this wheel of every fiber of my being, every fiber of my being. And I said, the movie is about colonization. They're fighting because of colonizers. And we, as Black people and brown people, we deal with this all the time in real life. And there's something that we have to deal with, us. And she walked away. But that didn't take away from the beauty of Crown Wakanda. For all nerds, thank you so much, Benjamin and Tatiana.
Thank you.
I
Y'all let
loved it.
white
I'll be
people
back to
come?
whatever you do.
Y'all was giving tickets to white people, man? What happened? Somebody brought a date? What happened? Somebody got lost?
No. She attended. She attended. She was an attendee of the event.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Moving on. Tim, as our newcomer, before we get down to Rod, how did you feel about this choice?
I felt like it was an excellent piece of entertainment. Great entertainment, but also a terrible piece of propaganda. And I say that to say that the drama was amazing, the acting was amazing, the attention to detail, the action, Namor's origin, getting him away from the Aquaman origin that Namor in the comics has, that's so similar to Aquaman in DC. The way they did it to incorporate a story about colonization and the wages of sin that come with colonization and an independent indigenous community growing in the sea, amazing, right? Beautiful. The politics, very, very, very questionable. And I say that to say the rage of the colonized is valorous, it is important, and it is an agent of change. And I think we could look a little bit to the relationship between Disney as a whole and, the U.S. government and military and ask ourselves how far Ryan Coogler and his team could go to subvert U.S. imperialism and the idea of white supremacy. So all that said, again, beautiful gowns. But I am a bit troubled about the underlying message, and that's my 2 cents.
All right, we'll get more into that, before Janicia leaves.
Bursting at the seams. I've been bursting at the seams since Drea brought up white people. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We got a lot more. Ron.
Oh my goodness, this is spicy. Like
already.
This is already.
We have some
First
water
of all,
over here.
Yeah, Janicia, my condolences for your loss. Thank you for sharing that, and like I said,
Thank you so much.
condolences.
Thank you.
To me, Tim's excellent comments notwithstanding, to me, it was not a perfect film, but it was a perfectly achieved film. What I mean by that is it had an impossible task, and we've all touched on it in various ways. But just to reiterate, to me, like just following a $1.3 billion movie that broke all kinds of records. It was the first film to be shown in Saudi Arabian theaters in like 25 years, right? The first Black Panther film. It was a cultural movement. It did things that no other Marvel film certainly had ever done. So just following that movie is in and of itself an impossible task. So then let's add, it has to be an homage to Chadwick. It has to be a cathartic experience for the cast and crew, filmmakers, and to us, which is a totally different cathartic experience, right? They knew him, they loved him, they called him brother. To us, we admired him, and I know some of you all knew him as well, but that's also an impossible task. And then there's the Marvel of it all. They had to set up the future, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that. There were all these seedings that they had to do because it's the end of Phase 4, the much maligned Phase 4, frankly. And so it has to set up Phase 5 and 6. And then it has to introduce one of the most anticipated Marvel characters ever in Namor. But Ryan Coogler and co didn't just say, oh, we're going to introduce it. We're going to introduce not just Namor. We're going to change the cultural background. We're going to make it a much deeper, much richer cultural motivation. And to Dr. Drea's point, it's not just, oh, here's a character who's like an environmentalist. It's a community that's another victim of colonization that we see the results of the trauma from. I mean, listen, nobody can touch all that. So it's not a perfect movie, but in terms of what they needed to do, grand slam.
Very, very well said. I agree, with pretty much what everyone said on this. Even Tim, I definitely feel like all the Marvel films and most films to a point are propaganda for the American industry and empire. And, the same question was said about Black Panther, because we call it now on the show Killmongering a character, where a character just has to make really ridiculous decisions so they're the villain, which is what Killmonger does in the first film when he starts, choking out grandmas and burning up the herb. Like, I'm the villain, even though I'm really saying revolution for people of color worldwide, sounds pretty good to me. But, he has to make these decisions so that, we can call him the villain. So I fully agree with all that. And I also really definitely agree with you and Dr. Drea. That's something that I wanted to bring up more about. It was, like, the first time I saw it, honestly, I walked out mad at Namor, honestly. Namor, I was like, man, this... And I didn't understand how people would take it, because I was like, damn. Like, me and Tatiana were standing outside the theater, and we were like, how are we going to go and keep promoting Crown Wakanda right now when this movie's talking about beef between Black and brown people? And it wasn't until the second time I see it where I really get it. And I still know that a lot of people could be mad at him because of Ramonda, but I also feel like Ramonda made, decisions. And I'm a realist where if you make decisions, you have outcomes. And she made decisions and these were the outcomes. But I understand why people be mad about that. And I also feel like the point isn't expressly put, even though, because this is a Marvel film, you still have him talk about smallpox. You still have people really do say a lot, but it's still hidden underneath the superhero-ness of it all. So I understand why, and how that could have been a bit more expressly, put. So now that you've had some time or anything, how are y'all feeling about it now? I mean, beyond these initial reactions.
Yeah, I kind of want to talk a little bit of about the white people shit, and I want to talk a little bit about the Black versus brown type of shit. Mm-hmm. So just to touch on white people, I feel like Black Panther initially, I feel like what was so amazing about it, and a part of why it was a cultural phenomenon that transcended just these are fictional characters in a Marvel movie, is because it was not overly concerned with the white gaze, G-A-Z-E, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like when we go to a movie like this, all of us here understanding the nuances of colonization, right? Like, honestly, when I walked out and people were like, Namor is not the villain, he's the antagonist. I'm like, yeah, obviously. Who are we talking to? Are we talking to white people? Like, what? Who are we talking to? We all knew that when we went in, and we knew that when we left. So who is this for? And so when we talk about white people like their children, like, oh, well, what are the kids going to get from this? What are white people what are they going to think? What are they going to know? I thought this was a film that was talking to and for Black and brown people. And we know that Black and brown people intersect. So we're talking about them like they're two totally different things, but we know that we all intersect at different points in a lot of ways, and some of us don't. But like, that conversation to me is a little bit concerning, because I think it goes back to white gaze and being overly concerned with what white people will think about stories that that do not center their gaze, that do not center their eyes and their view. I think that Regine's experience at Crown Wakanda, while it's unfortunate, when encountered with that, we tell them, no, you missed it. It was about colonization. And we go about our lives. We don't have to, every film don't have to be about what are white people going to think about this? And so there's that point, which I think has a lot to do with the, that thing about white gaze and are they going to understand that he's not, we all know that he's not a villain. We all know what he was trying to do. And I don't think that Ryan Coogler was trying to say he was a villain. And maybe I didn't think this was controversial, but he was trying to protect his community. I thought it was very, maybe reasonable is not the word. It was understandable that he would want Riri dead. Listen, we don't have time for this shit. Let's get rid of her. Let's eliminate her. I thought it was understandable that he would come and want to kill the queen. Because I told you, I warned you more than once. And you came and you fucked around, you found out. So whether that's right or wrong, I don't, that's his own thing. But I thought it was very clearly an understandable thing, unless we're sitting there thinking about what are white people are going to think. And the other thing of this is this Black and brown, we're fighting. They're watching us fight. It's Black and brown people here. We know we fight. We do fight. We fight amongst each other. We misunderstand each other. during that whole George Floyd thing, my people, I know some of y'all still have white friends, but I didn't have that issue with like my white friends don't get it. My issue was the people of color, the non-black people of color who I love and trust within my inner circle. There are things about this that they are not getting. They're embarrassing themselves and they're hurting my fucking feelings because they don't get it. And this whole time I've been black and we've been friends for 20 years, you thought I was lying about this shit. And you are not a white person. You are a person of color. There are things about each other that we don't fully understand and we do fight. That doesn't mean that we don't love. That doesn't mean that we don't understand that our enemy is colonization and white supremacy. We fucking fight. And I think it's a little bit, and I'm glad that, you saw it a second time, Ben, and you get it. It's not a personal attack. But it's hard for me to find the proper words. But I do think it is a little bit, I don't know if the word is like immature or like base level, surface level to kind of be like, oh, they saw us fighting. We were fighting. I thought it was two people. And the part of it in real life is when we fight in real life, it's over colonization as well. And we be fighting. We're not fighting because we don't like each other. We're fucking fighting because slavery, white people, these niggas have ruined everything. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why we're fighting. And so to sit there and be like, oh, why did we have to be against each other? Like we don't know that we're not constantly fighting and talking about anti-blackness within all of the dynamics of that, whether you be somebody of, Latina background and black, whether you're a white, and we saw a lot of white folks. We saw a lot of white Latinx folks talking about how, Tanakh was not an appropriate representation of Mexican folks. So it's there. We be fighting. Okay. So that's been a really uncomfortable thing for me after we had this cultural experience back in 2018 where like it transcended the film because we never seen no shit like that in our life. So it's not just a movie. We was on the street throwing the Wakanda salute to strangers, taking pictures with strangers. And we hadn't seen anything like that. For me, I hadn't seen anything like that since Star Wars, which is its own cultural phenomenon. We've been had Marvel movies and we never seen no shit like that ever. So it's bigger. It's not, I know a lot of people are like, well, it's just a movie and I have a good grasp on reality. Good for fucking you. This is a cultural phenomenon, as is this current film. And I wish that we could enjoy it without dwelling on, thinking about, obsessing with the gaze of white people.
My goodness. Well, good podcast, y'all. I think that wraps it up.
I was going to say the same.
Needs to be said.
I do want to say I was never mad about the gaze of white people. I was just mad because he killed Ramonda. And that goes back to like my grief for my mom and stuff and seeing someone's mom, losing their mom on screen. That was like, and I was one of the people like, I don't know about that choice, just because I love Angela Bassett. But then she, like you said, she fucked around and found out. And I am also not one of those people. And I feel like this is something that we have to touch on real quick. Is this idea that because a character is a character of color, they must live forever and nothing must ever happen to them. Like I've seen the new one, T'Challa Forever. And I'm like, this dude has to die. Like no matter what, like no matter if Chadwick had lived to be 100 years old, eventually T'Challa, the character, can't go on. That's a problem with capitalism and comic books, that would take a whole nother episode to talk about, that these characters have to be eternal, that we always see Batman, Superman, etc. And so because of that, people are conditioned, and now they always want to see T'Challa forever. And that's a problem. And that's just a problem with comic books, and it stifles creativity and everything else. And that's the thing where now I'm seeing people reacting to it where they're like, oh, Ramonda, oh, the choice was bad. They can't kill. Oh, look at the royal bloodline. It's all gone. And it's like, what the fuck is this? Prince Charles and shit? Like, I don't give a damn. Like, one, the royal idea shouldn't be an idea. That's a messed up thing that they're moving away from in this film. But once again, people are missing that point. So that's where it stopped. I just wanted to point that out. It wasn't about the white gaze. I was just hurt that, Angela Bassett wasn't going to give no more speeches because shit.
It's been a storyline in the comics too. The moving away from royalty and the monarchy into like something more democratic. So I also kind of disagree with some of the critiques that I heard. I think to say this film is name a perfect film. Like It's no such thing. So, you know, and it's all varied upon like your own vibe and how you feel, right? Like one person's perfect is another person's flawed. You know, I think flaws aren't really the same for everybody. Black and brown people fighting on screen. We've been watching 27 films of white people fighting white people. Not once has anyone left the film embarrassed, ashamed, or holding anything against white people in that way. If there's a propaganda angle to it, I guess all films are propaganda, but it just depends on what you would want to see from the confines of this. Like, I think walking into a Black Panther film, this is a pretty revolutionary statement they made within the confines of what Black Panther is. Like, Black Panther comes from Marvel Comics. It doesn't come from independent Black person that wrote some shit. They're adding elements that weren't even in the comics sometimes. American imperialism is definitely front and center as a threat. Like, the entire fight between the Black and brown people is because American imperialism is going to come in and attack one of our cultures. And it ends with, we can spoil it, right? It ends with, well, yeah, when they come, which is the most fuck you middle finger a Black director's gonna put in the film, is America's going to come attack these people for no fucking reason. And then we're gonna gang up on their ass. So it wasn't cause America's great, right? And it's not really a problem. I mean, you know, they were just killing in the back. No, it was absolutely saying like America ain't shit.
Elaine, whatever her name is in the movie, literally said destabilization is on the table, meaning it's happening. That's what they're doing. And
what would we do if we had vibranium? Like it's just, the levels are right there. I think if you want to examine it on that way, I think it's there. And then the thing I'll say about the Killmonger thing, I think that's a bit unfair because I think villains always are a reflection of the hero that make the wrong choice. Not just Black, not just white. Like, everybody is what if T'Challa would have just went one step wrong and got left in America? So it's all about the valor of the main character and like the reflection that they're making. So, I think Killmonger, as much as I love that story, he's gotta be flawed. If it's just two heroes, don't nobody want to watch that shit. You know what I mean? Like, if it's just like, actually, you know what? I ain't gonna kill nobody. That's a great point, T'Challa. It's like, what was this boring movie? So they gotta make him make a bad choice. It was gonna be something, I think. And then the last thing I'll say is everyone ties on to the representation, but then we go, this character doesn't get to be an individual anymore. And I think that's a hard thing for people to bring together, those two concepts, which is, yes, it is representation for Black people to have this character, but Killmonger is not the representation of Black America, period. And that's all there is to say about Black America. Riri Williams is a Black American. No one's going, well, clearly she had to go kill some women for no reason. Like, it's clear, like, there's levels to it, and I think it can be examined, but I think when we critique it, there has to be some level of like, you know, context to the analysis.
One of the reasons why I held on to, just quickly, one of the reasons why I felt so anxious in the first half of the movie is that I was fixated on Tenoch Huerta's representation of Namor, in that I kept wanting him to actually reel it back a little bit. And then I realized halfway through the movie, I am embodying what I have learned as a Latino American, being raised in the U.S., wanting to police him, wanting him to dial down the feeling. And then same day, someone had put in my feed, I had celebrated this character, I was processing, and someone had put in my feed, this white man had put in my feed, well, I wanted him to be more of an asshole. And I thought to myself, well, yeah, you know, when he teams up with Dr. Doom in the comics, I could see that, but not in this context.
Right.
There was something, you know, there's that white fantasy of that kind of manifesting as the angry Latino man who is hyper-violent, who is aggressive. And here we have this graceful, protective character who is, you know, articulating he is not sneaky about this. He is articulating clearly what the plan is. And I savor that. Like
and
I
scary and deliberate as fuck.
And
Scary
smooth.
and deliberate.
Smooth with it, though.
Smooth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like quietly powerful. Power doesn't have to look one way. He just hit it. He just hit it so well. Sorry to cut you off. So go ahead, please.
No, yeah. Timm.
I was gonna say, Janicia was saying earlier that Namor is not a villain. I think, from my perspective, leaving the theater, he's my favorite Marvel villain thus far, right? Because of all the things you cited in terms of how powerful he is, how cool, calm, and calculated he is. And I think he's both antagonist and villain. And I think what makes him a villain is how he rolled up on Wakanda. He didn't come to them with the olive branch and the extended hand of partnership. He didn't come to them with diplomacy. He came to them with a threat. And I think you can't lose sight of that, right? I think Wakanda definitely fucked around and found out because they're not used to being threatened in that way. But Namor is pretty clearly like, nah, yo, it's my way or no way. And even at the end, once the resolution is like, all right, we're going to link up with Wakanda. Once the U.S. and the imperial powers come for us, that's going to be our partner. But he's like, yo, Namora, but at the end of the day, for real, fuck them. It's about us, right? So, like, there's an element there's an element of like deception there as well. So I do feel like he is a very powerful villain that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I guess for me, it's the framing of the term villain that I have seen on the internet. Like, to me, I don't think it's bad to refer to him as a villain, but I the way that I have been seeing it when people kind of say he's not a villain, he's an antagonist, or the way that people kind of talk about him as a villain, or even to Drea's point, somebody saying, oh, I wish he was more of an asshole. Like, the way that I feel like a lot of people interpret villain is like, the person is bad, their cause is unjust, they're out for whatever. When even when he rolled up like that, there was still a level of, because he could have came out guns blazing off rip. You know what I'm saying? Off rip. He could have taken somebody hostage off rip. It was a threat. It was a warning, but it be like that sometimes. And so for me, I agree with you. I'm comfortable with like the way that you've talked about him and being a villain in that way. That makes a lot of sense to me. But the notion that a villain is always what we know villains to be, which the villain being white supremacy, right? That's our model for villainy usually, right? That to me didn't fit. But real quick, while you're talking, when you talked earlier about the propaganda, it was giving both you and Ben, and maybe it's because y'all have talked about it already, it was giving do your research. Can you explain to me what exactly you felt was what was the propaganda, and what was, just if you could just go into that a little bit so I can understand what y'all are talking about.
So I think the film acknowledges imperialism in general as an enemy, and especially imperialism at the hands of white-led nations, right? You got Ramonda calling out France and the US in that segment and everything. But what I think is the important nuance is that rage from the side of those who are colonized or threatened with colonization is demonized, right? And I think it's literally Killmonger when Shuri meets her ancestor, and it is Killmonger, and she's in a room that's in fire, and we know it's in fire because he burned up the plants and all that, but it also gives off hell. It also gives off the metaphor of devil, like this is evil. And my point is, the rage that comes from colonized people is not necessarily bad. I don't think the rage of any oppressed person is necessarily bad, right? And I think the danger, the propagandized danger in this is associating the rage of the colonized with bad. And even Namor being a villain, like, yo, if you talk about within your fucking rights to be mad and go in and be powerful and flex or whatever, Namor has it. They killed his mom. He comes back and sees what they did to his people. That no love shit, that's why he carries that as a mantle. But I feel like in positioning him as a villain in the way he is a villain, it makes it seem as if to be angry about colonization to the point that it might get violent, right, is wrong. And I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna stop taking up space. Go ahead, Regine. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say real quick, maybe it's the Aries in me. I don't see Namor as a villain. I'm about war, but I'm also about peace. But sometimes you gotta get there through some action. For me, seeing Namor and seeing how he approached initially Ramonda and Shuri, I felt like he's a person that has seen a lot. He is 500 plus years old. And so he's been watching from the seas. He's been watching all of these horrors take place from below. And this is like the first time Americans are encroaching on his space. And I really felt like he was coming from a place of like, I see what you do. I've been watching for centuries, and that's not happening here. And I can understand why when he came up to them on the beach, it was like, this is what it is. Either you're with me or you're against me. And that's that. Like, he said what he was going to do from the rip and from the top. He never said no lie. He never played no games. Now, I can understand folks not agreeing with his processes, but he's seen a lot. So for a person that's seen a lot of wildness, a lot of bullshit, a lot of violence, firsthand, I can understand why it's like this is what the options are. Because if I don't give any options, if I just lay back and watch, what happened to my mother will happen to my people, and will also happen to Wakanda. Mm-hmm. So I saw him as a person that was thinking forward because of the past. So his actions, there were actions that can be considered villainous, but as a leader, there are certain decisions that you have to make. And it's just like, you either make this one or that one. Everybody's not going to like it, and you're going to be a villain to some and a hero to others. So that's how I received him and his processes and the reasoning of why he did what he did.
I'm going to say something.
Wait, can I say something about Killmonger real quick? Okay, I just want to tap back on the Killmonger thing. When you talked about him, we see him in the ancestral plane, and he's, there's fire in the room and yada, yada, yada. As again, to me, and I don't know that, I don't think you're thinking of it in this way, but to me, that also sounds like the white gaze, because as a Black person looking at another Black person, his hair is flourishing. He's standing there in all white. He's built. There's no reason in the ancestral plane. No, I know that's not what you're saying, but this is just how I'm seeing it. There's no reason why in the ancestral plane his locks have grown and he's flourishing and looking good in that way. It felt, when I saw him, I was like, oh shit. And then he started spitting facts. I hadn't even pieced together the fact that Shuri don't really believe in all of this stuff. I didn't feel like it was a scene of like, oh, she's looking at the bad guy. I didn't feel that way. I felt like, oh shit. And they know that Black people love this nigga. Is he kind of a Hotep? Yes, I think so. We've all been there. Okay, we've all been there. But there are pieces of Killmonger that are valuable. And I thought, I hear what you're saying about the fire, but I didn't see it as this hellish villain kind of showing up like, oh, why do we see him? I saw it as, oh shit. I thought he was done justice. As a hair nigga, his locks flourishing, that was a celebration of Killmonger, this character, and the understanding that we don't see him as a villain in the context of the way that villains are portrayed, in this kind of unforgivable kind of, you're just an all bad kind of way.
So Shuri sees him because she's consumed with grief that is transmuted into rage, right? And the whole story of Killmonger and his character is that rage on the level he's at, this burn the world shit that Namor is also on or whatever, is actually a bad thing. And Shuri's hero's journey throughout this film is a couple of things. It's her, one, accepting the traditional ways, because she's a scientist, she doesn't rock with all that stuff. At the end, you see her doing that. Two, it's her letting go of her grief. This is her burning her ceremonial garments and everything, right? And in letting go of the grief, it's also her letting go of her rage. At one point, she says, I literally want the world to burn, right? And so I feel like,
so do I, and I might still burn it. You said that rage was valuable. And when I saw Killmonger, I saw the value in that rage. Her choice, that's not her choice to move in that way. But I didn't think that they were presenting rage as a bad thing. And I feel like just what you said, rage for people who have been colonized, our rage, it is valuable. It makes sense. It's
presenting it as a bad thing because it's a thing she has to overcome as part of her grief at the end anyway, right? Rage would have been her killing Namor, right? To avenge her mom, right? So like rage is something to get past. Rage is vilified.
But
so that's what I'm saying to that point.
Okay. Wait, Ron, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, no. And due respect, because I'm really loving this conversation and I appreciate it. But one of the things I just want to point out a couple things on this. I think the rage that Killmonger has and that Shuri has in this movie are different, right? Mm-hmm. Because Shuri's rage is grief. It's the loss that she suffered through, like, you know, her brother dying of a virus and her mother dying. It's like, and so in my opinion, I wouldn't say that rage is necessarily crafted as a bad thing, but rage where it's causing these communities to kill, like Black and brown communities to kill each other, is not going to be productive. When, as we've all said in this conversation, the true villain is colonization, is white supremacy. And so to me, the resolution of that is we need to unite together. We can't consume each other. Because that's what she says, right? We can't let this rage consume our community. And so I feel you, Timm, on the first film, because I see what you're talking about with Killmonger. But to me, Shuri's rage was a little bit different. And I will think for Namor, I feel like that's a weakness in the writing. He starts with like, oh, we gotta kill Riri because of, you know, we don't want to be found. Suddenly it switches on a dime to like, oh, join me, we're gonna kill everybody. And to me, I felt like that was a little bit of an inconsistent characterization in the movie.
I thought it was fan service.
I felt like one he did that because you could see how he was looking at Letitia. And it was like, oh, dude got some game. But it was also clearly like he got to know them. Mm-hmm. So like that first thing was he didn't give a fuck about Riri, none of that. He's like, white people coming out to the sea, stop this shit. And it's y'all fault because y'all came out to the world as the magical place of vibranium. So y'all gonna fix it. And here's their little machine, learn how to track it. Bye. So like, that was like, I think that changed. You know, it's a 2-hour, 40-minute movie that did a lot. So it may have felt like rushed, but I don't feel like it felt illogical. Like it felt like, oh wait, maybe we could work together. Y'all, okay, I can see where you're coming from. You know, that's how it felt to me.
But you went from like, nobody, don't even mention we exist because we don't want to be seen to now we're going to rise up and burn the whole world down. It just seemed like the motivations didn't seem well laid out, developed to me. I'm just saying that's one of the weaknesses.
Well, I think he saw a kinship in them, in that the encroachment of the U.S. and colonization, and said, dog, we are the two most advanced nations in the fucking world. Fuck them. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's where he was coming from. It didn't seem like a leap, but maybe I'll be reading too much Coates. The other thing is, the reflection of the hero is what Namor is, right? Like all the villains are a reflection of the hero. And I think the way they did it in this film is they kind of don't give you that to the end, but lost his mom. Also, you know, had to face the attack on his homeland coming from Wakanda, right? His person got killed. And he decides like, my grief, I'm gonna go destroy Wakanda. Like that was that rage. And then of course the flip side of that is that Shuri has to make a different choice as the hero. Lost her mom, lost her brother, had her country attacked. Now, if the fucking movie is just her going and destroying, Namor's homeland, what fucking kind of movie is that? I love you, Timm, but, well, I barely know you, but don't nobody want to see that shit. It's a screenwriting.
That's not the movie I'm suggesting, but no, Wakanda wouldn't win anyway.
But that whole like rage it's okay to be rageful. It's never gonna be okay in a movie to put that in there and make it make narrative sense to most people, because most people will reject that as a response. And these are commercial products that are trying to make some money. Also,
I think it's about rage against whom, because like,
hold on. Go ahead. Also, I think anger was not vilified. Rage was. And there is a big fucking difference. So like, you can be angry about something and be like, hey, I'm gonna kick your ass. You're not gonna take over my country. I'm gonna kill everybody on the planet and take over the world. That's not just anger, right? And I think that level of rage can be wrong. Like, there's like trauma. I know they say hurt people, but trauma is all of us have gone through. It doesn't make everything okay. When Shuri said she wanted to burn the world because her brother secretly died of a disease, that's clearly a stage of grief. But that is not saying, and I wish you would have did that. Like, no, that actually would, the people who care about you in your life would come to you and be like, Shuri, we can't just burn the world because of that. And I think that's a totally reasonable thing to put in a script and in life.
So don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying rage and like, I think the burn the world thing is where you get him Namor going from antagonist to being a villain, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when I talk about rage in general, like what Ron talked about in terms of like the nuances between the types of grief and the types of rage that Killmonger have, Shuri have, all that, I feel like they're not really delineated against, right? They're not like made like these are the demarcations between those things. It's like being super mad is really bad. And I think from my perspective, I'd love it. And this might even happen. I'm not saying this is not going to happen in, what are we in, like phase 5 or phase 6, that the combined forces of Wakanda and Talokan basically exact their rage against the colonizers, right? Against the imperialists. I feel like that rage is righteous rage. I'm not saying all rage. I'm not saying community rage or intra-community rage against Black and brown people is good. I'm saying that what the film does a poor job of is making those demarcations. I don't think so. I think even with Killmonger, you got to go back. His rage was really about his narcissism. He was going to burn the world as long as he was on top. Like, It wasn't like, it was clearly in the film. It's not to say the film's not that deep, but you have to kind of purposely avoid that to get to this conclusion of like, it's just, you can't get too mad. It's like, he was killing his own folk to be like, and I'm gonna fuck, and you're gonna get down and lay down with us burning the whole world.
Which is like, the way of the Hotep.
But I feel like
it's the way of the tell.
But hold up, I feel like it's muddled with his message of like, hey, look at all this stuff they've taken from us. This is Killmonger, right? Mm-hmm. Look at all the stuff they've done to us, whatever. Wakanda, you weren't there for us, right? That's muddled with his narcissism to the point that I'd say generally people are not making that and saying, all right, oh, okay, it's bad when you rage from a narcissist perspective, but not bad when you rage.
Well, hold on. So you go even further, right? The same anger and rage was felt by Wakandans, especially Nakia. And her solution was like, let's go out and outreach to our folk across the diaspora. Let's stop just being insulary and going, we're an isolated nation that's going to keep all our shit to ourselves. They use that same level. That's why, like I said, reflections, right? The villain's reflection of the hero. Hero makes a different choice. Shuri, people get attacked. Her choice is like, I'm not going to just go burn your fucking village down. And I'm not just going to like, I'm going to make a different choice. Same thing with T'Challa in the first one and Killmonger. He makes a choice to listen to the women in his life and goes, I do think this outreach thing can work to help people around the globe. I don't think we have to go just indiscriminately start getting everybody in a war where people are going to die.
But that's not what I'm asking.
That's what Killmonger wanted. That's what he said.
I'm not saying Killmonger was right. Is not my.
I know you're not. I'm not. Brother, you got to listen to the words coming out my mouth. I didn't say you said that, brother.
I'm just trying to make it clear. I'm just saying like they're not teasing out the differences in rage and its usefulness.
I think it is because I just came up with those reasons and I saw the movie as many times as you did. So clearly one of us, like we know, and you picking up exactly what I'm saying. You're not going, Rod, that didn't come. You're going, oh yeah, okay, that is that, but I don't. So when you say it didn't make it clear, for who? Because you understand, I understand. Who are these dumb motherfuckers that don't understand?
Are they
not on this podcast?
You know who I think they are. You know who I think they are. I want to hear what Dr. Drea has to say. She was about to say something.
I felt so revved up after the film with what is exactly is coming up with us right now. As a trauma psychologist, I almost have the inability to just go to the theater and watch this and just enjoy it. I am always going into a deep dive. There's my Talokan reference. Always got to go into a deep dive, and it's like, I can't not do it. I just want to honor this concept right now of accessing our anger and our whatever existing rage we have. because whatever that was for each of us might be slightly different. But I'm, let me align with you, Timm, around this concept that what we saw was this sort of emergence of rage, what we believe to be manifesting as rage, the intergenerational trauma being confronted now, this being a pivotal turning point for Shuri, and us being in witness to what's she going to do? Is she going to give in to burn the world down rage, or is she going to convert that energy into something a little bit more reparative? And so I'm in total alignment with you in that the ending had this kind of message about what we can and can't feel, because feeling is different than action, right? I think, Rod, I'm with you on that. Like, this for me normalized that we can feel such a deep rooted feeling of rage around our personhood, around our colonized bodies and what we have the right to do or not to do. So the celebration of the rage we feel is a part of this film. I don't come out of any other movie having that feeling of like, thank you for normalizing that in our heroes we're seeing this amount of rage, because I need that. How it kind of resolves itself is a little bit of I think of a debate too, because it did kind of clean up a little bit nicely. And, maybe I did want it to be a little bit bolder at the end and say a little bit more about that. But I just kind of wanted to feel that here with everybody, like comment that, like, if anything, where I feel an honoring is that we are in very few movies, we as people of color are rarely allowed to be portrayed that way and to have that element of rage and be seen as the hero. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think also as a writer, I think about the alternatives, right? So like the alternative, Shuri kills Namor. I think you got a big ass discussion after that everybody's gonna be mad about. Shuri gets killed by Namor. They team up and go kill some random white folk. Like, it was like the discussion is not gonna lead, or the way that the elements of this movie are built, it's never gonna lead to a neat, clean conclusion that will make everyone happy. And it's purposeful, I think, to start a discussion like the one we're having right now about rage and stuff. And it's in a fucking Marvel movie, which nobody had this coming when we saw Captain America or Iron Man. Nobody was like, yeah, and in 10 years we'll be talking about colonization and American imperialism and like people of color and our righteous rage, and what is the responsibility of having that rage. I think all of that is very I think that just lends itself to more of a credit for this movie. Mm-hmm. To me, these are the most difficult Marvel movies. They're more difficult than Endgame. Like, easily, this shit clearly got more implications in real life than just what happens to Thanos.
Yep. Let me add on to that real quick, because that is something that, one, I think, and this is something I want to talk about, is Nakia and Haiti and all of that. And I've said since the very first movie that, that was our slogan coming out, was Nakia was right. And I just felt like that was the missing link that a lot of people missed. And also, as far as the whole Killmonger being a villain, as far as Namor being a villain, I don't see either of them. I see them as antagonists to their goals. But even him stepping onto Wakanda was done very smoothly and done with the respect and awe, too. He was like, yo, I can't believe this is real. My mom told me about a place like this. Look at all this y'all have. Don't y'all remember how evil white people are? And he says it right there. And they're like, oh, no, what are you doing here? And he's like, remember, white people are evil, folks. And so I don't see him as a villain at all for that move. But then, like, going back to Nakia and Killmonger in the flames, when that man said, your man T'Challa was a coward. T'Chaka's a hypocrite. I was cheering. I was stood up and cheered. I didn't say this dude's wrong. I was like, nah. Yeah, in some ways, all
points
of that
were made.
True.
Points were made.
Points were made. So I feel like and I want to talk about this, and like, I think that that's the other side of this, and I've said this a million times over, like Rod said, that these movies are impossibly difficult and have so much on them that no white movie has. None of the MCU. Some people are like, oh, no, T'Challa Jr. is fatherless. I'm like, up and down the line, all these dudes is fatherless, and we don't ever mention it. You know, every single white character in the MCU is pretty much fatherless, and it never comes up. Not once are they a bad representation. Oh my God, what are these people? Oh, they can't have
children are bastards.
Yo, mamas, yeah.
Are bastards.
We don't ever. It never comes up. But now suddenly it's an issue. Oh, T'Challa Jr. Oh, where's the male representation in this movie? Somebody said today they're like, oh my God, the only black males in Baku, and I'm like, oh, you know,
and Baku held it the fuck, and he held it the fuck down.
He held it the fuck down.
Excellent job.
And that is not only the comedic aspect, but it's also the wisdom. And that's something that it talks about. We're moving away from this. And then everyone's suddenly, oh, Baku's the king now. When he's clearly, one, joking, and two, he just talked about they have to move away from all this stuff. He's learning, which some of y'all need to do out there. But, you know.
I think also in the first movie, it's like T'Challa's called a coward because he wants to be an isolationist.
Yeah.
You know, like he's just like, we don't need to really be fucking with these white folks.
Yeah.
Because Killmonger's like, but what about all the black people? You know what I mean? And it's really Nakia that comes through with the solution between those two. And the reason T'Challa's a hero is he literally listened to the women in his life.
Mm-hmm.
His Shuri is the person running the outreach centers. You know what I mean? Obviously the general of the army is Okoye. You know, his mom, Ramonda is still giving, like, she's advising him. Like, it's, to me, it's so obvious what made him heroic is the collection of the intersectionality of his attitude. It wasn't, even the way people are lionizing him in this, like, recasting movement, they make it sound like he is this king who comes out, has all the right ideas and personality, and just was running shit by himself. This movie, being basically essentially our first ever full feature length black woman superhero film, like backdooring it in, kind of like, that is beautiful. It, like, I honestly, when I left the film, one of the reasons I'm very defensive of it is because for years black women been like, I like the MCU, but they always kind of sideline us. We don't really get to be on the main person. And I'm like, I don't even care if she anti-vax. Some girl, Letitia Wright, is now that first black woman superhero of a major motion picture and feature length film. And I'm rooting for the film in those ways because I didn't think we get here.
And it was another moment for us to be like, yo, I never saw no shit like that in my life. We never saw a black woman superhero in that way. We never saw, when they teamed together, her, Riri, Okoye, I never seen no shit like that in my life. And it's unfortunate. I feel like because of the recast movement, to an extent, I feel like there was a sensitivity around not talking about that and not bigging that up and not like saying, yo, you about to see some shit you never saw in your life. But it is a big deal for me as a black woman fan, as a black woman, you know, as a blurred or whatever, a womanist race nerd. It's a big deal that this is the first black girl superhero movie that I ever seen in my life. I never thought in all my years, I never thought I'd live to see the day. Because we constantly, you know, when you are, and we know this period as people of color, that we are capable of seeing ourselves in other people and other identities, but it's so much sweeter when you see somebody that looks like you. But I've been seeing myself in male hip hop artists. I've been seeing myself in the T'Challas, in the black superheroes. I've been seeing myself in them, but to see myself in black girls was like, holy fucking shit. And it's just so unfortunate that, and this is why people say, and I know a lot of people hate this, even those with good sense, that black men are the white people of black people. It's unfortunate that so many black men can't see themselves in black women the way I see myself in them. And that's a bigger problem that impacts the way that we treat each other and shit like that. But I really do wish that, I just can't see, if there were no Recast T'Challa movement, they would have talked about how you about to see some black girl shit that you never seen in your life. Okay, because I was sitting there like, oh my God. Oh,
the criticism has been
God.
very gendered. And I think that's one of the
Yes.
reasons I've stayed away from the recast discussions, because it's extremely gendered. It's extremely, like, is shading the fact that there's black women at the front by being like, it's an absence of men. Like, it's never, like, they're not just coming out and saying it with their full chest, which is, I don't want to see no black women be at the front. It's all like, but what about the men? What my son gonna watch, you know?
Yeah.
it's very weirdly gendered, and I think that's why it comes off that way.
Yeah, your son can watch a lot of things, and your son should watch this.
He can also watch this one.
And that's the fuck shit. And I will say, because I've been like dealing with it, especially we had E-Man on the first part of this, and shout out to everybody who's been in the YouTube comments since then. And it's been a lot of, like, one, like Rod said, for the most part, it is 90% men. There are a few women on this side. But what I've even noticed more so than that is there's a lot of people who don't even look like me who are really out there saying, yo, recast T'Challa hard. And I'm like, who the fuck are you to even talk about this one? And then it's just, it goes back to that idea. Like, I saw someone say they nerfed T'Challa. It's like, this is a, human being. This is Chadwick Boseman. This is a human being. These are human beings. Like, you cannot use these terms that you apply to video games, that you apply to real people. And they said they nerfed him because he had no low intelligence and sure he is smarter than him. And it's just the audacity and the ignorance and, emboldening these people I cannot deal with anymore. And I'm just sad because, like we keep going back to, it's always been, Nakia was right. It's always been that T'Challa learns from the women in his life like any black man does on this planet. It's always been that, and it's always been Ryan Coogler being intelligent and wise enough to put that on screen as the message of the first film. And for the fact that everyone completely missed it, the fact that in the first film, Nakia and Okoye have the most important conversation, and in this film, it's like Nakia and Letitia have the most important conversation. And once again, Ryan Coogler let that happen, and people just missed it. And I am, I can't get over it because it's such ignorance. And then when people start questioning him because of it, it's just so disrespectful.
Can I bring up one more thing too about the anger and rage?
Yep.
I love how Ramonda is the example of anger, of righteous anger, the whole film. Like, it's not I don't think it's as simple as just like, mad bad in this movie. It's very much like, no, there's a way to use this shit. And the way that she was so smart about, like, y'all think we don't have a protector? Y'all not finna run up on here, homeboy. And Jen sent their men back to them. It's like some Superman shit. Like how when when Batman don't kill, it's a little bit different than when Superman don't kill. When Superman don't kill, it's like, oh, I didn't have a chance against this nigga. I don't know what I was thinking. That's how it felt when she sent them men back. Like, I don't even know why y'all ran up on us. It's different than just, bombing a city or whatever.
Can I add real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying, so Janicia's point about viewers being able to see themselves in characters. I think that's a really, really, really important part, right? If you're part of any marginalized, community in the world or whatever, you've watched the exploits of people who don't look like you, who don't talk like you, for years and years and years, and being challenged to see yourself in people who don't look like you or may not have the exact identity you is like growth. To me, like when I saw kind of the recast arguments going around, I really didn't pay no mind because it was gonna leave me like it left you, Ben, just pissed off. Like, y'all not even giving props to what's going on. Like, you gotta look at and to what Javicia is saying, it's like, look at the magnitude of what's happening, right? Like one of the best action scenes here, which mirrors kind of like the car chase from the first one, where they're, in the first one they're chasing people, and this one they're getting away from people, and you got Riri, you got Okoye, and you got Shuri cooperating and doing ill shit. So
cooperating, and they're so impressed with each other. That's the other piece of this. They are so impressed with each other. Riri is hyped that, like, yo, am I getting recruited? Because all of us would be like, are we being recruited by Wakanda? All of us. Okay. I heard somebody, there was a continental African was saying on Facebook, like, well, it seemed like she kind of was like, it was too many characters in the film, and like Riri's character, maybe it was just too much. And for me, as a Black American, mostly seeing, that's how I would feel if they showed up at my door. Is it my turn? Am I being recruited? Are y'all bringing me to Wakanda? But seeing how everyone was they were impressed with each other as these Black women who do different things from different places. It was just amazing. Just that. And I just wanted to add, when we talk about T'Challa's choice to open up Wakanda a little bit, a lot of us left the theater like, I don't know if he should have done that. I don't know about that. I don't know. Some of us were like, okay, but that, because even what he opened it up a little bit more than what Nakia was even suggesting. And so to see Namor be like, why did you even do that? A lot of us had been thinking that. So this is in the line. If we think about what Black and brown people have been saying to each other about that first movie, that's in the second movie. When we start to think about what are the children, aka the white folks, gonna think, that's when it gets dicey. Gets spicy and dicey and weird.
And okay, I wanna bring this up too before we get away from it, because that's something else. Like, we talked about how much weight this film has and how much Ryan Coogler and crew and cast and everyone put on themselves. And we talked about things that we never see in any of these other white films. And one of them is that, a section of this film takes place in Haiti, which just by actually putting anything in Haiti is like, that is like, how many meetings started and ended with, are you Ryan though? Well, the algorithm, you know how many meetings he went through to get that to happen for, the place that, in the Western Hemisphere threw off the colonizers. Like, that is saying a lot. Like, so I want to know, Tim, I want to know how you feel about it. I want to know how pretty much everybody felt about it, but I do want to bring that up as well.
So I thought that was awesome too, because as everyone should know, Haiti is the first democratic, free republic in the Western Hemisphere, right? And Haiti, when we talk about righteous rage, right? Literally, that's how they gain their independence. The saying is "coupe tête boule kai," which means cut off their head and burn the fucking house, right? So that's the fire used in the right way, right? And I think to also acknowledge, like, T'Challa's son, his name is T'Challa, but his name is also Toussaint Louverture, right? Yes. Which is the first president in Haiti, one who commanded the army. But Toussaint has an interesting story. I think everybody should look it up after this podcast, because he kind of played himself into kowtowing to the colonizers. He died in jail in France, right? Whereas his second in command, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, was like, nah, fuck these people.
You gotta, he lived long enough to see himself become the villain. It happens. So I thought that was really significant. I think when you talk about these meetings that Ryan's having, right, at Marvel, and like, Haiti, why Haiti? They're poor. What are you talking about? Unstable, blah blah blah. I think Ryan and whomever else was with him is like pointing to the history books, like, nah. If we're talking about Wakanda as this independent, powerful Black nation, let's talk about the first Black nation to set it off via insurrection in the Western Hemisphere. Like, let's go there first. So I really rock with that. And I will say this, I feel like Wakanda, though it is that free Black nation, I think Talo Khan represents the energy of Haiti a lot better. Because they're literally maroons. Right? They dipped off, went into the water, and they got their own power and people, and they made their own society. And it was like, do not fuck with us. We're sovereign. So that's me.
Yeah, Wakanda's never been colonized. So it's not even.
It's never been
like
colonized.
That was even in the first film. That's the big difference.
The big point of pride. Yeah,
they never been colonized. They're proud of it, but
it also makes Wakanda behave a little bit like some Black bourgeoisie on some shit.
Well,
it's in there
perfectly in the movie.
I'm not saying it's not in there. I'm just saying,
no, we all agreeing right now.
And that's also
definitely.
That's an Ethiopia's had the whole situation with Eritrea. That's their same energy, and having been there, that is the energy they give off. It's like, we've never been colonized, and we gonna let you know about it, fam. And fuck everybody else.
They even collaborated.
But
so,
even when Riri says in this film, when they go to Riri's dorm and she's like, what did she say? Black excellence or Black girl magic, and she's like, y'all don't have to say that in Wakanda. Y'all don't say that there.
Right.
It's there. It's not low. It's not low. So this conversation is happening. And we see it, and we know that it's happening. It's not for everybody. White people are not going to catch every single thing. And that also is the beauty of it, because how many films at this level are speaking to us and are not wasting our time, wasting your and my time on a fucking explanatory comma that we all know that we don't need. You know what I'm saying?
And
I love it.
These other films couldn't do that. Like in Thor: Love and Thunder, like Asgard is on Earth. That's another
that
like
hoe can't do nothing.
You know what but they could have talked about colonization. They could have talked about imperialism. They could have talked about a bunch of shit. They were just like, it's funny.
Goat jokes.
Isn't it hilarious? All right, guys, let's get out of here. And then also
cocaine time.
The other thing I liked about the Riri as a character, because like there's parallels to like America Chavez in this Doctor Strange compared to this, and I know people hated that. A lot of y'all hated that. But the thing I was going to say is, we know Armor Wars is coming, and we know they left some meat on the bone for like this characterization. They don't show us Riri's origin story. You know what I mean? Like even at the end, they like take the armor back. They're like, all right, that was cool. Good luck in America. Here's your car back. You know what I mean? Like, so we even get to kind of still see Riri. Someone's going to get to build her up again. So I like that.
Yo, why did they take the armor?
They took the armor so the white people didn't get the technology. Yes. That's why.
Because you know what? She the same one that fucked around and let them track. Like she can't be. She a kid. She can't be trusted.
There's a theory that I want to bring up. I don't know if this has come up before, but I low key sending those Americans at the very beginning of the movie, sending them to kind of get the vibranium in the ocean and shit like that. I think that may have been a part of the destabilization plan. I think that might have been a way to like set it off between, you know, Wakanda and Talokan. Like I think that was a part of the plan. I don't think it was this kind of isolated, like, oh, these guys are going to get, this was a part of the plan to destabilize. And that's one of the things that when we talk about us fighting as people of color, that's usually where it pops off and where it starts.
That's what the CIA does, and Val runs the CIA. What the CIA does is go to countries and make people infight so that they can take over and take the resources. So yes.
And the way that she played Freeman in this joint with the beads, like she's clearly duplicitous and ahead of everybody.
Yes.
You know, even in like I know there were people that hated this characterization, but I loved it. Even in the Black Captain America joint, when she was like playing chess and he was playing checkers, I loved it because I was like, that's what they do.
Yeah.
You start believing in the dream, and now look at you. These motherfuckers got you working for them. You don't even know. You got to stay woke, brother.
Yeah, but he was married to her. He should have known better.
Oh, there Freeman? Yeah, she definitely cheated on him.
I was hoping for a more, I don't know, like deliberate point about what you just said, Janicia, about how the most powerful modern day tool of white supremacy culture and colonization is pitting the oppressed against each other. And we see that playing out. And what maybe could have been, I don't know, low key for other people, but I was starting to really digest here is that I felt that they were also decentering America as the exemplar nation, that there was a subtle reminder that freedom in America simply means the right to oppress others. And that has always been the case.
Yep.
So that is sort of like what I saw the common thread with including these other nations and giving these examples, the comparisons, the fiction and the real coming together as a reminder of where we're at with this. But yeah, I don't know, like for me, it wasn't as low key. I was going to say,
right, that part. That's what I was going to say. It's not that subtle if it is your lived experience. It's not subtle at all. You know what I'm saying? It's not subtle. I know I'm not the only person who thought, this was a part of the destabilization plan. So it's not that subtle if it happened to you. But if you're trying to teach, this is not a history lesson in colonization. This is, they're talking to us. It's there. It's evident. You know,
even with Haiti,
this is not.
They don't take time and give you like a message with Haiti. If
nope.
you know, and they know we know.
Yes, and they know that it's just setting it there. Go ahead, Ron, after this, but it's just setting it there will set off Google immediately. Immediately now, Haiti is the most Googled subject. If you type in Haiti, it's the autofill Wakanda after it. You know what I mean? So that is insane. Like that alone.
And they show the beauty of Haiti.
Yes.
The beauty of Haiti. The safety that she's there as a place of safety and refuge.
Yes.
So even in the way that it's portrayed, it sends the message. Even if we're talking about teaching people, it sends that message. It is image activism. Sometimes, you know, what's understood don't need to be said. You know what I'm saying? Like it's there. It's there.
It's like, I keep bringing this up. I went and saw Black Coffee, the DJ, a few weeks ago. He was performing in Brooklyn, and his whole set, while he's playing to thousands of people, projected on these giant screens behind him, are the most beautiful images of Black people dancing, living, shining, just looking beautiful. And I was like, yo, that is so sick. All night, all this multicultural, all type of crowd dancing this music, looks up and sees beautiful Black people. It's like, that is revolutionary in itself. And that's something that, and that's one thing that we go back to the recasting, because I've been dealing with it, is that was my biggest disappointment with it, is, and I knew this was going to happen, is that after the film came out, they would continue to be mad, or they'd move the goalposts where it's like, well, now Kane can age him up, or in Secret Wars, we'll get the multiversal T'Challa. When you've just seen a whole movie that is literally about grief and about moving on and about dealing with it, and that's the message you took. And I knew that was coming, and that was just, it's so sad, because as this episode has shown, there's so much to celebrate. And Ron, I want to let you talk, and then I do want to ask some more things about Namor and about the whole Talokan, because I think we got to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple points to all the amazing things y'all have been saying. To your point, Ben, about Googling Haiti, I think that's what amazing art that we've seen, especially from Black creatives, has done, right? Like the Tulsa Massacre from Watchmen. Like, so many people didn't know about that, and that show inspired people to educate themselves. And I think that caused a lot of positive, changes, in society. And so I think, like Tim said, people are going to Google Toussaint. Our view of Haiti in pop culture, I think, is going to hopefully change, like Janicia said. So that's what Ryan and co did at an amazing level that makes this film special. To the destabilization point, in my opinion, it's very clear that Contessa is the villain, that the U.S. is the villain. She says, "I dream of the day when we have all the vibranium," right? And we know she's gathering the Thunderbolts. We've seen it throughout Phase 4, and the Thunderbolts aren't cool people. They're not good people. John Walker and all of them are going to be there. And to my view, they're going to attack Wakanda, right? They're going to be the hit squad that goes for Wakanda's vibranium. We all know the Doom War comic that has shades of the outside world trying to steal Wakanda's vibranium. But my kind of hesitancy is, now that it's out, the story progresses outside Ryan Coogler's hands. How is it going to be framed? Are the Thunderbolts properly going to be framed as the villains trying to take the Wakandan vibranium? Or, is the CIA going to be designated as the villains that they should be? I'm not sure, because we're not sure. The storytellers change, and that gives me a little bit of anxiety. But I hope
he does have the overall production deal with Disney and with Marvel right now, so he's probably going to be involved. And we still, have not heard who's the director for Secret Wars.
No, I've been pulling.
I
think he probably needs a break.
But he's also said that he's the type that he can only focus on one thing at once. So maybe now that he's done with this,
Also, I think it gives. I feel I'm not that anxious about it because of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like, clearly those motherfuckers were the villains. Clearly imperialism was still bad. I hope someone Black get their hands on it, but the point being, the notes is right there. Like, just copy this shit and put it in the next shit, because they've established these characters, and it will be a wild change in arc for somebody to be like, actually, CIA kind of good guys if you think about it. Like, nope, fuck that.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier should make you nervous, to be honest.
So you think Falcon? You think what's her name? DeFontaine was a good guy in that?
I wouldn't say she was a good guy, but I don't think it was framed in the way that I think it should be. And I think the whole story arc of Falcon and the Winter Soldier has lots of issues. So
we have to talk about that one day, brother.
I don't know, I'm super afraid that the attention is going to get drawn away from the U.S. and the CIA, and it's ultimately going to be some type of Victor Von Doom plot in which he was the mastermind at the end of the day. I hope
that
it
would be
doesn't
good too,
happen.
though. I'm not gonna front.
I mean, it would be
like,
cool from a story.
It might not be
perspective or
like
whatever,
after
but
school special for y'all and educational,
here's the
but
thing.
I want to see Von Doom kick some
here's the
ass,
thing.
and
I'm
I
not
would love
saying
to
I
see
don't want to
that.
see Dr. Doom. What I'm saying is like I think it kind of takes the onus and it takes the weight off of the critique of imperialism that's in there, right?
But they've
like,
already
it's a cool
done it
setup
too.
to introduce a character, but like I don't want that to be the case.
I hear you. Yeah, different things for different people.
Okay, we definitely can't be here all night, but I do want to talk one more thing about Namor and how does it because something that we talked about this before the episode started is that Tanakh, says he is a dark-skinned. I think he used the word resentful. He says it in Spanish, but he has a book coming out, and he spoke a lot about, and I love him for it. And I like you said, I don't consider him the villain, but I do think Namor is one of the best characters Marvel has introduced to this point, hands down. And I'm a big fan of him from the comics. I love the environmentalist take they did on him in the 90s, but I think this is just such an insanely beautiful take. And I think, having all that stuff, like talk about smallpox, talk about how they murdered his people, talk about how the Spanish people wiped out, the people, and how it's like, this colonization comes from all sides. But I want to just talk about seeing like these dark-skinned Latin people on screen and how that felt and what that means for everyone.
What I love to hear is Tenoch answer these questions in interviews. And it's interesting. Obviously, we are wanting more representation and seeing ourselves in these big roles. We don't want to be the villains. And so what's characterized is so nuanced and complex enough for us to feel like, okay, this is not a one-dimensional version. But Ben, what you say about what we look like is a huge contentious debate happening in the Latinx community right now. And Tenoch is very vocal about what it's like for him to be in the biggest screen you can imagine when we think about mainstream media culture. And he acknowledges he's Moreno. He acknowledges that his chaparrito appearance, the stoutness, the darkness, the way that he appears is a direct subversion of what the Latinx people have been, the rare times that we have been on screen. When we look like him, we are the servants, we are the maids, we are the workers, we are the field workers. To be in such a big spotlight and to, on screen, represent the concept of conquering, to be conquered and to reconcile being in a conquered body. All of that being represented, and then off screen for him to manage what the criticism is. People coming for him, you're too dark, you're too short, you're not Thor, you're not big enough, you're not, all these different criticisms. And for him to gracefully talk about how he is proudly, thoroughly, fully who he is refreshing. The code switching and respectability politics is a study too, because when he's on Good Morning America, he's a certain way. And if you listen to his Spanish language interviews, he's fully there. He's fully there, and he's a lot more vocal about discrimination, colorism, victimization, oppression, the things that Latinx communities are experiencing right now. Of course, we need more of this because we cannot rely on one single character, one single actor to hold all these expectations. That's rep sweats. That's the danger of rep sweats, right?
That's the danger of recasting, and we don't want that same thing to happen with this man, so that we are experiencing right now. One other thing I
loved it. Yeah. Sorry, I want to say I loved it.
Yeah,
I fucking loved it, and I think that when white people are mad, whether it's white Latinos, whether it's white Americans, when white people are mad, you fucking did it. You know what I'm saying? So I love that, and I love that it kind of brings back that conversation to the forefront that this umbrella of Latinidad is not does not eliminate the fact that there are racial divides. There are racial and ethnic divides. In addition to this, it also brought up a conversation about indigeneity. And I think in every part of the colonized world, they like to talk about how, oh, well, indigenous folks, they don't exist anymore. They're gone. They're wiped out. I was just talking to my family about this in Jamaica, in whether it be, you know, indigenous folks here, the illusion that they no longer exist, even though we know, of course, mass genocide is not, you know, there are fewer of them here than should be. They still exist. The culture still exists. The language still exists. So I like that it's brought that conversation to the forefront. And I love that the whites are mad, whether it's Spanish-speaking whites or, you know, whites of any kind. When they are angry, you know that something has popped off. You know that it's happening. Yeah. It's happening. We're doing it.
I also love that he represents...
Sorry.
I also love that he represents royalty and immortality. Like in so many ways, he's kind of above this shit. Like when he says take on the surface world, I believe him. Like I think he can do it. I don't, like I wasn't like I was like, whoa, and then calm down. Like it, like I was like, I get you, man, but that's a whole nother movie. We're gonna need 2 more hours. It's almost 2:25, brother. Like it was that much to it. And also just the way he looked, his music, the army, the fucking water bombs that they had, the fight on the fucking bridge in Chicago, like them feats, oh my god, yes. Them feats, bro, they made the corniest shit in the comic book the scariest shit in real life. I said, bro, you don't want it with this guy, man. What, like, stop sending his ships, he's just gonna fuck him up, man. Just ask him to go away, do what he say. Like, that's how real he was in the fucking movie. So I loved all that.
I just want to say we can't overlook Alex Livanali and Mabel Cadena, because you know, Namora and Atuma are also doing an amazing job. They're not given as much, but thankfully they don't die. And I actually thought Atuma might die in the film, but their stories will go on, and I think that's important, right? Because like Dr. Dre just said, it can't just rely on Tenoch. And you know, Mabel, she's talked about in interviews, like this role has allowed herself to kind of reimagine what's possible in her career. So talking about, you know, representation and what it means, it's not just external. I think both Alice and Mabel have really, if you follow them on the press tour, they've really been embracing the moment. And I just wanted to make sure that we talked about them too.
Yeah. And we had America Chavez, and I love that Marvel didn't go, enough. Yeah. We got our brown person. Let's, like, they're like, nah, let's keep it going.
I think what was dope too is like, Wakanda as a concept brings together kind of this composite of different indigenous African cultures and creates this futuristic culture based on all those. I think we get that with Talokan. Like, it's Mayan, it's Aztec at the same time. It's going to send people to Google to find out Kukulkan is a real thing, you know, like actually worship, whatever. And I like, these cultures have been debased by so many people for so long and disrespected. To see them kind of put up on a pedestal and represented as something like grand, like, you know, Namor rising from the water, right? That to me is really, really ill.
Super. One other thing I wanted to bring up is the idea of, there's a conversation, one of the other illest conversations to me in the film is what Ramonda says to Shuri, is when she says, what does your construct bring you? Does it bring comfort or torment? And that was so fire, one. And two, that's one of the big themes in this film, is that this idea of spirituality versus science, and can they coincide? Can Shuri, who sees everything from a logical standpoint, understand that there are things to believe in beyond what she can see? And I wanted to know how y'all felt about, you know, this conversation.
Well, I love that it's in there as a black person that's agnostic at best. I love that this conversation's in there, because, you know, in the Marvel universe, unlike real life, we have proof that there's some shit after this, which is nice. So like in that one way, it's kind of like, oh, maybe it don't make sense to be an atheist. This nigga did see a panther and came back to life and seen his daddy. But in real life, you know, I think her leaning into, because I get that way sometimes about death too, where I lean into the fact that it's like, well, there's nothing after this. It's, you know, one of the reasons I don't get too upset when people talk shit about dead people, I'm like, nigga, they not here. What are we mad about? Like, but it's kind of that thing where I love that she leaned into that as escapism though. Like, as her mom was kind of leaning into this, like the grieving process of like the afterlife, Shuri's escaping through the work.
Nah, that to me, the work was the escapism, and I think her leaning to the spirituality was an affirmation of the people who came before her and like her culture.
No, you literally just said what I said and said it like you were disagreeing. What the fuck?
Yeah, no, I think you misunderstood what he was saying. That's what he was saying.
Yeah, like I like that because it made sense because I would do that. Like I've done that. Like I'll just lean into this shit because this is what I can understand. This is what I can explain. This is what, and it's like, well, then you're losing this connection to the people around you, because even if you didn't believe in it, they do. You know what I mean? And like to a certain extent, it's a denial of your mom. It's a denial of T'Challa. It's a denial of your people. That's their culture. It's not just a religious thing. It's also a cultural thing for Shuri. And to accept the mantle of Black Panther, you have to accept the cultural part of it too, or else you can't be that leader, So I thought that was kind of a message they put in there.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, just to talk about, I guess, bring it to real life. When there was a period where I do believe in the ancestors and shit. There was a period though after my sister's death when I would talk to her and she would talk back and shit. But there was also a period where it just started to feel like she was just dead, and that there is nothing after, and that when I talk to her, she's not talking back, and that's not even real. But when Ramonda asks, like, what does your construct, what does it make you feel to believe in it in this way? It kind of reminded me like that often is unique to every individual person. When I talk to my sister, she answers. When I just feel like, I'm working and I have a lot going on, then it's just like, wow, shit, she's fucking dead. But also, have you spoken to her? Have you tapped into your ancestors? Have you done that work? Have you been leaning into it? So it just reminded me that, like, when it comes to our practices throughout the diaspora, sometimes it is whatever you believe to an extent. Sometimes that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you engage in, sometimes that's what it is. If I don't engage with my ancestors, they don't necessarily engage with me. You know what I'm saying? But that's my own shit. But that's what I took from it.
There also was a cost there, right? Because Shuri's the only one that can make this herb. The herb is literally how they pass the lineage of leadership on for their people, how they have a protector. They were going to be protectorless as long as she refused to even acknowledge this part of the culture. Like, I think that's why I love that construct line, because it's not bringing her to heel, like, you better believe in this, is real. It was like, okay, so you don't believe in it. The thing you believe in, what is it bringing you? Because it seems like it's tormenting you and it's making you angry and disconnect. It's not bringing you back to being Shuri in a healthy place. This is you grieving so strongly that you're kind of like, I want to burn the world down. And it's okay for your mom and the people that care about you to recognize that in you and talk to you about it. Like, she didn't even try to, like, control her. She's like, let's talk about this. Where are you at right now?
And Shuri uses science, the shit that she believes in. She uses science to bring the herb back. You know what I'm saying? And so it doesn't have to be this kind of one or the other thing. Sorry, Regine.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I feel like, she definitely did bring the herb back, because at that point, it was about, I want to say, like, helping her people as well as helping herself, because it's such a touchstone, not just what it does, but what it represents. And, once she used it herself, finally going to the astral plane and then seeing Killmonger instead of her mother, and then her waking up and that really shaking her up, and it sort of bringing her full circle to the end where you just see her crying and nodding her head and feeling like, well, my brother is with me. My mother is with me, and sort of taking that in. So, for me to see both moments, to see her with Ramonda and her being very upset, because that definitely was an extension of her grief and not necessarily wanting to believe in anything. She just wanted her brother back, and then taking her to when her mother passed, and then her saying, I can't sit in my grief right now. I have to step up for my people, but still very, very much grieved, still very much enraged, still wanting to burn the world, and realizing this is not conducive for my people. And then again, to the other side of the circle where she's sitting on the beach and saying, okay, I helped my people. Now I have to take care of myself. Because that's what my mother would want. That's what my brother would want.
And like, she saw her mom in the middle of that fight. Like, she didn't see her mom when she thought she see her mom. She saw her mom at the moment when she was about to become a killer. Like, that was so dope. And then the choice that they made, because I think, like, not to get on a tangent, but like, I think low-key forgiveness is going out of style for people. And like, low-key, a lot of motherfuckers actually do need it. Like, it's not about the other person, it's about you being able to move on. And I think it's become so out of fashion with, you know, our social media propagating like anger forever, because that's what drives rage and clicks, that it's become like this like taboo thing to say, like, yeah, but if it's bothering you that bad, maybe it is okay to find another way out than just continuing to propagate this cycle of violence. That we talk about being trauma breakers, but that's how you break trauma. It's not, you don't break trauma by being like, and I'm gonna hit the motherfucker harder. It's like, and then guess what they gonna do? You know what I mean? So I think that was dope. Also, the choice directorially to never show us Chadwick's body. No Star Wars CGI shit. No, even like a voice from the past, like he left a note. Like, it was just pure, like, it, like, we are Shuri when she goes under and sees Killmonger. That's us too, where we're like, oh, we're not gonna get this. This is real. Things are happening. We're not gonna get what we want in an easy fashion. We're gonna have to go through this journey together in every stage of grief that you go through. And I thought that was beautiful.
All right. Okay. I think we have pretty much touched on everything that I wanted to touch on tonight. I'm not sure if anyone has any last things that they want to get off their chest before we get out of here.
I got two things.
Okay.
One, I appreciate that they let them be a little bit gay. It's about fucking time.
Yeah.
I don't care that they won't show the movie in China.
Come on, a little gay. Yes.
Yeah. A little more, but yeah, I was happy for it.
I mean, we could always use more, but if we're being real, something weird about the Marvel universe, all the heroes are asexual as fuck. I don't know. Yeah. The one movie where they was fucking, everybody hates Eternals. So I don't know. Maybe they had to stay away from the sex, but I love that they had that tender moment at the end where you was like, oh shit. Yeah. And then China went, no, you can't show this here. But fuck the money, man. They did the right thing. And then the other thing is, I will always wonder, and I guess we'll never have a complete answer, but I will always wonder if they kind of wrote Letitia going to Self-Care Island because of the controversy over the vaccination shit during the film and them not being sure if she was going to be able to come back in the sequel, because they just, after this movie came out, Disney just did away with the you have to be vaccinated policy. But up until that point, they were like, every new project, everybody got to be vaccinated. And I'm like, how do you do a sequel? How do you have her as Black Panther in other movies and TV shows if she refuses? I don't even know what you do with that. She was, unlike Shuri, Letitia Wright's very religious. So I didn't know what they were going to do.
All right. Okay. I think that's it. Can everybody start with Janicia? Please let everyone out there know where they can find you at on these internets.
Yes. So again, I'm Jay or Janicia from Tea with Queen and Jay podcast. So you can find us there. We've been on an extended break, but there are over 300 amazing episodes of that podcast, and we will be coming back. We are also we're back to podcasting on Patreon. We took a moment to collect ourselves after the death of my sister, but we're back there if you want to check us out there. But as always, you can find me and my podcast at Tea with QJ. Or if you want to go to teawithqueenandj.com, you can. And you can find me personally in all places at Janicia F. Janicia F.
All right, Ron.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Super honored, Ben. You can find all my work at POCculture.com. I'm at POC Culture on all the socials, not Mastodon. I know that's where everybody's going, but Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok. I'm terrible at TikTok. And on YouTube. And I hope you'll check me out on YouTube because I had a chance to interview numerous cast members, Letitia Wright, Lupita Nyong'o, Denai Guerrera, Namor, and Alex and Mabel. They were amazing. So I hope you'll check out those interviews. And one last plug, I wrote my first piece for The Ringer. I wrote about how this film sets up future phases. So I hope you all check that out. Thank you again for having me on the spaceship. And this, I mean, what an incredible conversation y'all had. So I'm just honored to have been a part of it.
Oh, man. Thank you. All right. Timm.
So yeah, you can read my work in places like The Fader, Gothamist, WNYC, a couple more things, but definitely check me out on NTS Radio. I do a show monthly called Subject to Change. Check out my playlist on Spotify and Apple Music. That is Rap Caveat with a W. And you can reach me on any of the socials at Timm Hotep, TIMM HOTEP. And everybody, think sharp, think through, don't be basic, and ask questions. That's all I'm gonna tell you.
All right, Dr. Drea.
You can find everything that I talk about, write about, do commentary for on my website, drdreapsychology.com. Got a few clips there for an upcoming video game, Warner Brothers clips. Speaking of that, you can check out my podcast, The Arkham Sessions, which is all about the psychology of superheroes. We started with Batman the Animated Series, rest in peace, Kevin Conroy. And then we moved through, we've covered Star Wars, we covered the MCU, Watchmen. So check it out if you like the psychology of superheroes, The Arkham Sessions. And then I'm on social media at Arkham Asylum Doc.
Okay, and see, there we go. That I'm gonna use your show as evidence because I've been telling Tatiana that Views from the 616 can cover DC shows, and we don't need to change or start yet another name. Because we have like too many podcasts right now, and I want to limit it. Like we got Castle Black for fantasy, Views for superheroes, and For All Nerds, and that's it. We ain't doing
once you have your brand, you can expand for sure. But thank you so much for creating this space for humble conversation, a learning conversation, a compassionate conversation. It's a pleasure to be involved in it.
Oh man, thank you. All right, Regine.
Thanks again, Ben, for having me. It's really exciting. So again, my name is Regine Sawyer. You can find me at www.lockettdown.com. That's LOCKETT down.com. If you want to check out the comic books I write. If you want to learn more about WINC, aka Women in Comics Collective International, you can check us out at www.womenincomicscollective.org.
All right, and Rodimus.
Let me unmute myself.
There you go.
Yeah. Nah, man. Thanks for having me. As always, so fun to be on a spaceship. I always end up meeting the most interesting folks when I come on here, and I get to be my fun, loving, opinionated self. And nobody ever really takes it personal, so that's always beautiful. As far as where to find me, you can find me on Twitter as long as it's up at Rodimus Prime. And then my podcast, The Blackout Tips, is a comedy podcast I do with my wife. And we have a bunch of like premium spinoff stuff. And if you're interested in nerd stuff, one of our premium shows is The Nerd Off. So you can check out our opinions on nerd things there. So thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. For real, thank you to everyone on this panel. Y'all are all amazing people, and I'm always honored to have such illustrious and amazing guests on my show, on our show. Shout out to Tatiana King, who is not here tonight, but is always here with us in energy and spirit. She's off doing other amazing things right now. Shout outs to the For All Nerds. You can follow us on all the different social platforms, everywhere at For All Nerds. Make sure you are following the podcast on all those different platforms as well at For All Nerds. We are back on twitch.tv/For All Nerds as well. I'm going to be back DJing. I got a couple weeks off from dealing with weddings and other nonsense, so I'll be doing some more DJing on there. Shout outs to Janicia, who is rocking the T'Challa and Friends shirt right now, that you can find. Well, that's the exclusive colorway for the Crown Wakanda, but you can find the other ones at forallnerds.com, where you can find all of our merch. We got new merch coming, a lot of dope designs on there, so please check it out. We just launched that. Even if you don't buy anything, just leave your email for us, because we'll be sending out coupon codes and all kind of other dope-ish very soon. You can follow me at DJ Ben Amin on everything, but that don't really matter that much. Just follow at For All Nerds. And I don't know, we got a lot of stuff coming. We have a super big announcement, but I have not signed the papers on it yet, so I cannot make it yet. But look out for that. Keep October 23rd open in your calendars of next year. That's all I can say. Peace and love.